Welcome to Spriester Sessions. The last Democratic senator elected in the state of Texas was 1988. His name was Lloyd Bentsen. Man trying to break that trend is Congressman Colin Allred. He is our guest on this edition of Spriester Sessions. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Why do you think you're the man that's going to break that, 36-year trend?
Well, because I think this is about our future, not about our past. It's about who's going to serve us until 2030. And we've had for 12 years, and Ted Cruz, a senator who I think has not been doing the job, who I think has been pitting Texans against each other. I'm the exact opposite. I'm a fourth-generation Texan, raised in Dallas by a single mom, played football at Baylor, made it to the NFL. And I've been the most bipartisan Texan in Congress. And I want to bring us together around our shared values in the Senate. I want to actually get things done as opposed to just attacking people and never being a part of any solutions the way I've seen Senator Cruz be. And I think we're ready for this. And I also think that fundamentally, we've had some really horrific things happening in our state, particularly around taking away a woman's right to choose, that we have to restore some of these fundamental rights.
Talk about specifically that. What are you saying on the campaign trail about reproductive rights?
Yeah, well, we just had an event in Dallas, actually, with a group of really brave Texas women who were telling their stories about what's happened to them. And I guarantee you they would all prefer that you not know their names, really. Yeah. But they are now becoming somewhat well known because they've been through really traumatic experiences here in Texas with pregnancies that were non-viable, where they had to maybe flee their state. In one case, an 8th-generation Texan being told by her doctor, you have to leave right now, or having a miscarriage and been denied treatment, and then maybe having their future fertility put at risk. This is not who we are as Texans. And there's one thing I know about us, is that we believe in freedom. And this is not it. When you have Ted Cruz in your doctor's office, when you're trying to make some of these really critical decisions, you are not free. But we can restore it at the federal level by codifying Roe v. Wade. That's the standard that we've had for the last 50 years. And I want Texans to know that's what I want to go back to, whereas Ted Cruz wants to continue down this path that I think is putting us in really terrible positions.
This is the second time that we've talked, and I know the first time bipartisanship was a big deal, and you were running against local state senator Roland Gutierrez then. Now all your focus is on Ted Cruz. When you run as a bipartisan, is it a fine line between, I guess, embracing Kamala Harris and the Tim Walz campaign, but still being independent enough to go your own way?
Yeah.
Do you see it that way?
Well, I think the way I see it is I try to campaign the way that I'll serve. And I want folks to see that over the course of the campaign, when I talk about that I'm the most bipartisan Texan for the last 6 years, that's not just an election year promise. That's something that I've been doing and that I'll continue to do in the Senate. But also that I'm going to put us first. And this is actually what I've come to expect from Texas leaders that I think we've gotten away from, is the idea that you're going to be a Texan first. You're going to look out for Texas first, and then your party, and then whatever other considerations you might have. And that's one of my biggest issues with Senator Cruz. We have a bipartisan Senate bill to try and address what's happening at the border. Basically, the command comes on down that they don't want to pass this bill because they think it won't help in the election. And Ted Cruz says, you know what, even though Texas will benefit more than any other state from this, even though it'll be billions of dollars for my state, I'm going to take this down because I think I'm more important. My election's more important than Texas. I'll never make a decision like that. And that's the way I've campaigned. And if I have the honor of serving, that's how I'll serve.
What's the polling showing you? I mean, obviously we've seen the public polling. I think it was Public Policy put out a poll that had you down to actually had Vice President Harris in that race as well. I mean, I think she was down 5. What is your polling showing you? Are you feeling, I guess, momentum, for lack of a better word?
No, it's an incredibly close race, and I want Texans to know that because every single vote is going to count. Bexar County, all of those surrounding counties here, it's going to count. And so we need everybody to be involved. I tell folks all the time, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. That's an Ann Richards quote, but it's also true. And so one of our issues in Texas has been, I think, that we haven't had as many of our fellow Texans being involved in our democracy. And so I want them to know that in a race like this, you absolutely can make this determination. You don't have to be embarrassed by your senator. You can get a new one, and that's what we can do on November 5th.
Yeah, you talked about the border. You talked about the border bill and the fact that Ted Cruz, basically in one of your ads, is quoted as saying, We don't need a border bill.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
What are you proposing? Because that's going to be a
Yeah.
huge issue in this race. What is the difference between you and Ted Cruz when it comes to the border?
Yeah, and I really want to get into this a bit because I think it's really important. Number one, we do have to have a secure border, and I think that Senate bill was a really important steps towards that. More immigration judges, more border personnel, more technology, changing the asylum standard. That's really important. But we also have to reform our legal immigration system because having a broken legal immigration system also contributes to some of the issues that we have at the southern border. And so it has to be a comprehensive approach. We have to have a comprehensive reform to our immigration system. Back in 2013, Barack Obama and a group of senators called the Gang of Eight had a bipartisan comprehensive reform to our immigration system that would have done many of the things that that bill would have done, but also changes that were necessary. And Ted Cruz took it down, was proud of taking it down. We know from his record that he'll never be a part of an effort to actually secure or to have a comprehensive reform to our immigration system. Because for him, the issue and using it for campaigns is more important than actually solving the problem. I am the exact opposite. I came out immediately for that Senate bill. I'm a co-sponsor of a bill called the Dignity Act that has many of the kind of components, it's bipartisan, that we're talking about need to be in the final comprehensive reform. And when I'm in the Senate, I'll try and make sure we get that done.
Yeah. Is a border wall part of that? Because the latest attack ad against you, it's not necessarily coming from the Cruz campaign, but it's coming from a PAC that supports Ted Cruz, Senator Cruz, says that it has sound bites with you calling the border wall a racist wall. Is a wall part of the solution? And how do you answer that attack ad with you saying it's a racist wall, we're going to tear it down?
Sure. Well, they don't want to talk. They want to talk about things out of context from 7 years ago. What they don't want to talk about is what's happened this year, which is Senator Cruz taking down an effort that would have had billions of dollars for border security right now. But let me be very clear: physical barriers are a part of our border security. They're not the only part, though. And this is where I get frustrated at times: is when we act like that's going to be the solution in and of itself. You talk to our Border Patrol agents; they'll tell you that yes, in certain areas, physical barriers are really helpful, and that helps them. It also helps the migrants. It's safer for them in some cases. But we also have to have technology. We have to have more personnel. And we have to have the policy changes that can help stem the tide of these migrants. So it all has to overlap and work together. And so to me, having a symbol that says that we are a country that doesn't want immigrants is something I'll never accept. But what we can have is a secure border and one that's humane. That is within our power to do. And that's what I'll do in the Senate if I have the chance.
So I just want to be clear. I want to make sure we're clarifying that. You do not believe the border wall is necessarily racist.
No, my issue is when people use it to try and attack others. But I've voted for and funded physical barriers along our southern border, and I've talked to our Border Patrol agents, and I know how important some of this is. But what I've always opposed is a symbolism or using something to attack or to try and divide, when that is not what we're trying to do. We want to have a secure border, we want to have a legal immigration system that works. We're a nation of immigrants. We're also a nation of laws, and we have to make sure those laws are followed. And that includes having a secure border that does have physical barriers, and we have hundreds of miles of them, and I voted to fund that.
Yeah. You were just endorsed by Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar, who is a strong advocate for changes at the border. There have been some Democrats, however, who have been critical of how you've been running your race. I saw the Texas Tribune not long ago ran an article talking about how they wanted you to be more Beto-esque, Beto O'Rourke, for lack of a better word. How do you view those criticisms?
Well, it just comes with the territory. I have to be who I am, and I know how to run in Texas and how to win tough races. But beyond that, as I said, I am campaigning the way that I'll serve, which is talking about important issues. We did a roundtable yesterday in Austin talking about the CHIPS and Science Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill that are bringing billions of dollars of resources to our state, and that Ted Cruz voted against and that I voted for. We have to talk about these important things because I want Texans to know what the choice is here, that there are real policy changes, there are real investments in your community, that there's somebody who will be on your side. I'm not somebody who will ever try and be the star of the internet. I want to be on your side when you sit down at your kitchen table and you're having these difficult discussions, and you know that I'll be on your side when you have those discussions about what are we going to do next if grandma gets sick, if we want to send our kid to a good school, how are we going to make sure that we can retire with dignity, that I'm fighting for you.
Yeah, and I guess some of the comparisons between the Beto O'Rourke campaign, I think, are inevitable. The next person who is going to run, no matter who got it.
Yeah.
Are you tired of them? Are they not helpful? I mean, like you said, you're your own person. You're certainly striking a more bipartisan tone than maybe the former congressman did. I mean, how do you view those comparisons?
Well, as you said, I think it's probably natural, but also this has to be about our future, and this has to be about who's going to serve us for the next 6 years. We have a very important decision to make here. In that last election, we saw that Senator or Congressman O'Rourke came up short. And then in that meantime, Ted Cruz went to Cancun when the statewide freeze hit. He was part of trying to overturn an American presidential election. He's helped take down a bipartisan Senate border bill. He's voted against the CHIPS Act. He's voted against the infrastructure bill. That's all happened since then because of what happened in that election. Imagine all the things that are going to come up in the next 6 years. And who do you want to be fighting for you? And that's what I plan on doing if I have the chance to serve.
Do you plan on debating Senator Cruz?
I'm sure we will have a debate, yeah.
Yeah, nothing's set in stone at this point.
I don't think it's set in stone, but I think it's in train.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if you don't win? Are you even thinking about that right now?
Well, I have a long tradition, somebody who played in the NFL and was always on the bubble in training camp, that I keep focused on what I'm doing right now, every single day, one step at a time, one punch at a time, one round at a time, as they say to tell boxers. And so I don't really think too much about that. But I'll tell you this, I'm incredibly happily married. I've got 2 beautiful boys who are 5 and 3. I am the luckiest man in the world, and I'm proud to be a Texan, and I'm so proud of what we've been able to do together. And I want that to show up on November 5th so that we can continue to serve, and that's why I'm running.
Yeah, last question for you. Unless you say something I need to follow up on.
Yeah.
What is the strategy in the closing days here, and does it change from what you have done so far?
Well, it's what we've been doing. It's getting out and talking to people, of course, but also we have to make sure that we get our fellow Texans engaged. And our issue has been, as I said earlier, in many of our elections, that not enough of our fellow Texans were voting. And so part of our ground game effort, if you will be, of course, to bring the good news all across our state that you have a say in what happens over the next 6 years and who represents you. And this is how you can do it. And what I've seen as a voting rights lawyer before I ever came to Congress is that, yes, we have difficult voting laws in place, but we also have some folks who feel like nothing can change for them. And I want to tell the Texans that they can, that we can have a change, that we don't have to curse the darkness, we can light a candle, and we can do it together. And that's what I plan on spending these last, I think, 67 days doing.
Yeah. Congressman Allred, always appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.